3 years after the divorce, Marcus Jackson walked into the courtroom wearing a wrinkled dress shirt. A black single father, no lawyer, no money to hire one. The room filled with quiet laughter when he said, "I'll be representing myself." Everyone assumed his ex-wife would win easily, but when the judge asked Marcus about his financial capability, he said just one thing. The courtroom went silent and everything changed. Marcus had lived in the same rented apartment on the edge of town for 3 years. The place was small, one bedroom for his daughter, a narrow kitchen, a couch that doubled as his bed. The furniture was old but clean. The walls were covered with crayon drawings his daughter had made. Every Sunday morning, they sat at the kitchen table and made pancakes together. She always asked for chocolate chips. He always said yes. He worked as a repair technician for a mid-sized heating and cooling company. The pay was steady, not enough to save much, but enough to cover rent, groceries, and the occasional trip to the park. His daughter's name was Amara. She was 8 years old. She liked drawing, especially animals. She had a collection of colored pencils she kept in a tin box under her bed. Amara had a tangle of tight black curls that Marcus always kept neatly braided. Marcus's ex-wife was named Imani Carter. They had been married for 6 years before the divorce. She worked as a human resources manager at a regional firm. Her income was higher than his. She lived in a house she had bought with help from her family. After the divorce, they had agreed on joint custody. Amara spent weekdays with Marcus and weekends with Imani. For 3 years, it had worked. There were no arguments, no complications, just two people trying to raise their daughter without making things worse. But 3 months ago, something shifted. Imani started calling more often. She asked questions about Amara's schooling, her diet, her schedule. At first, Marcus thought she was just being careful. Then the questions became suggestions. Then the suggestions became concerns. Imani told him that Amara should be in a better school, that she needed extracurricular activities, that the apartment was too small. Marcus listened. He didn't argue. He knew Imani wasn't wrong about some of it. But he also knew Amara was happy. She never complained. She liked her school. She liked coming home to him every evening. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Marcus came home from work and found an envelope taped to his front door. It was a court summons. Imani had filed a petition to modify custody. She wanted full custody of Amara. The document listed several reasons: insufficient income, unstable work schedule, inadequate living conditions, lack of family support. Marcus read it 3 times. Each time the words felt heavier. He called Imani that night. She answered after 2 rings. Her voice was calm, professional. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus asked. Imani was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I didn't think you'd understand." "Understand what?" "That this is what's best for Amara." Marcus tightened his grip on the phone. "You could have talked to me first." "I tried," Imani said. "You didn't listen." "I listened. I just didn't agree." Imani sighed. "Marcus, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because Amara deserves better." "Better than what?" "Better than what we're giving her now." The call ended there. Marcus sat on the couch, staring at the summons. He thought about calling a lawyer. He looked up a few numbers online. The first consultation was free, but the retainer fee started at $3,000. Some firms wanted $5,000. Marcus didn't have that kind of money. He had maybe $800 in savings. He thought about asking his friends for help, but most of them were in the same situation he was, working paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Marcus tried to prepare. He printed articles about custody cases. He wrote down notes about his work schedule, his relationship with Amara, his ability to provide for her. But every time he sat down to organize his thoughts, he felt overwhelmed. He wasn't a lawyer. He didn't know how to argue in front of a judge. He didn't even know what questions they would ask. One of his co-workers, a man named Darnell, told him he should just settle. "You're not going to win this, man. Imani's got money. She's got a lawyer. You got nothing." Marcus didn't respond. He just kept working. The night before the hearing, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee and a folder full of handwritten notes. Amara was asleep in the other room. He thought about waking her up just to see her face, but he didn't. He just sat there staring at the walls covered in her drawings. His dark brown hands tightened around the mug, a black single dad bracing himself for a fight he couldn't afford to lose. The courthouse was downtown. Marcus arrived 20 minutes early. He wore the only dress shirt he owned. It was wrinkled, but he had ironed it as best he could. It was a battle just to look presentable in this space, a subtle pressure he always felt. He carried a folder with his notes and a small notebook in case he needed to write something down. The hallway outside the courtroom was crowded. People in suits walked past him without looking. He found a bench and sat down. Amani arrived 10 minutes later. She was dressed in a dark blazer and slacks. Her lawyer walked beside her. The lawyer was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a leather briefcase. They didn't look at Marcus. They walked straight into the courtroom. Marcus waited until his name was called. When he entered, the room felt bigger than he expected. The ceilings were high. The walls were painted a dull gray. The judge sat at the front, an older man with reading glasses perched on his nose. Imani and her lawyer sat on the left side. Marcus took his seat on the right, alone. The judge opened the case file and glanced at the documents. Then he looked at Marcus. "Mr. Jackson, I see you're representing yourself today." Marcus stood. "Yes, Your Honor." A few people in the gallery exchanged glances. Someone in the back row chuckled softly. Marcus ignored it. The judge nodded. "You understand this is a custody modification hearing?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you understand that Miss Carter is petitioning for full custody of your daughter?" "Yes, Your Honor." The judge set the file down. "All right, Miss Carter's counsel, you may begin." Imani's lawyer stood. She was polished, confident. She laid out the case methodically. She presented a chart showing Marcus's income compared to Imani's. She showed photographs of Marcus's apartment. She pointed out that Marcus had no extended family in the area, no backup if something went wrong. She presented a calendar showing that Marcus's work schedule sometimes changed on short notice. She made it sound like Marcus was barely holding things together. Marcus sat and listened. He didn't interrupt. He took notes, but his hands were shaking. He could feel the weight of the room pressing down on him. Everyone seemed convinced. Amani's lawyer was too good, too prepared. Marcus felt like he was already losing. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus stood. He didn't have slides or charts. He didn't have photographs or expert testimony. He had his folder and his notebook. He looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I'm not going to pretend I'm rich," Marcus said. "I'm not going to pretend I have everything figured out, but I want to say something." The judge gestured for him to continue. Marcus took a breath. "I work as a repair technician. I fix air conditioners and heaters. I make enough to pay rent and buy groceries and keep the lights on. That's it. I don't have savings. I don't have a house. I don't have a college degree." He looked at Imani. She was staring at the table in front of her. But for the last 3 years," Marcus continued, "my daughter has never missed a meal with me. She's never gone to bed hungry. She's never come home to an empty apartment. Every night I'm there. Every morning I make her breakfast. Every school project, every parent-teacher meeting, every scraped knee, I'm there. Not because I have money, not because I have help, but because that's what a father does." The room was quiet. The judge was watching him carefully now. Amani's lawyer shifted in her seat but didn't say anything. Marcus sat back down. His heart was pounding. He didn't know if it had been enough, but it was the truth, and it was all he had. The judge wrote something in his notes. Then he looked at Imani's lawyer. "Counselor, do you have any witnesses to present?" Imani's lawyer stood. "We do, Your Honor. We'd like to call Miss Carter to the stand." Imani stood and walked to the witness box. She answered questions about her job, her income, her living situation. She talked about how much she loved Amara, how she wanted to provide her with more opportunities, better schools, extracurricular programs, a stable home environment. She said she wasn't trying to take Amara away from Marcus. She just wanted what was best for their daughter. When Imani finished, the judge asked Marcus if he had any questions for her. Marcus looked at his notes. Then he looked at Imani. He thought about all the things he could ask, all the ways he could challenge her, but he didn't. He just shook his head. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "All right, we'll adjourn for today and reconvene in 2 weeks. I'll review the materials submitted by both parties and hear additional testimony if necessary. The gavel came down. The hearing was over. Marcus stood and walked out of the courtroom. He didn't look at Imani. He didn't look at anyone. He just walked outside. The sky was overcast. Marcus sat on a bench near the parking lot and stared at the ground. He thought about what the judge had said. 2 more weeks of waiting, 2 more weeks of wondering if he was about to lose his daughter. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Amara. She was staying with Imani's mother during the hearing. The message said, "Dad, when are you coming to pick me up?" Marcus typed back, "Soon, sweetheart, I'll be there soon." He put the phone in his pocket and stood up. He didn't know what was going to happen, but he knew one thing. He wasn't giving up. Not yet. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Marcus went to work every morning and came home every evening. He picked Amara up from school, made dinner, helped her with homework. They watched cartoons together on the couch. She talked about her day. He listened. He didn't tell her about the hearing. He didn't want her to worry. But at night, after she went to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and tried to prepare. He read through custody laws online. He printed out articles about parental rights. He wrote down every detail he could think of, every meal he had cooked, every school event he had attended, every time he had rearranged his work schedule to be there for her. He filled an entire notebook with notes, but when he read them back, they felt weak, like they wouldn't be enough. The second hearing arrived on a Thursday morning. Marcus wore the same shirt. He carried the same folder. This time, he didn't arrive early. He walked into the courtroom just as the clerk was calling the case. Imani and her lawyer were already seated. The judge looked up as Marcus took his place. "Mr. Jackson," the judge said. "Good morning," Marcus nodded. "Good morning, Your Honor." The judge opened the file in front of him. "We're here to continue the custody modification hearing. Miss Carter's counsel, I believe you have additional testimony to present." Imani's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call our first witness, Miss Rachel Bennett." A woman in her 40s walked to the witness stand. She was wearing a gray suit. She worked with Imani at the same firm. She had known Imani for 6 years. The lawyer asked her about Imani's character. Miss Bennett said Imani was hardworking, responsible, and deeply devoted to her daughter. She said Imani often talked about wanting to give Amara more opportunities, better schools, a more stable environment. She said Imani was always thinking about what was best for her child. Marcus listened. He didn't object. He didn't know how to object. He just took notes. The second witness was a child psychologist, a man named Dr. Philip Morgan. He had a trimmed beard and glasses. He had never met Amara, but he had been hired to review the case materials and provide an expert opinion. The lawyer asked him about the importance of stability in a child's development. Dr. Morgan said children needed consistency. They needed access to educational resources. They needed an environment that supported their emotional and intellectual growth. He said financial instability could create stress that affected a child's well-being. Marcus wrote that down too. Financial instability, he underlined it twice. When it was Marcus's turn to cross-examine, he stood. He looked at Dr. Morgan. "Have you ever met my daughter?" Dr. Morgan adjusted his glasses. "No, I have not." "Have you ever been to my home?" "No." "Have you ever spoken to her teachers or her friends?" "No, Mr. Jackson. My assessment is based on the materials provided." Marcus sat back down. He didn't know what else to say. The third piece of evidence was a report on Marcus's living situation. Imani's lawyer presented photographs of his apartment. The pictures showed the small kitchen, the narrow hallway, the secondhand furniture. She pointed out that the apartment had only one bedroom, that Marcus slept on the couch, that the building was old and located in a neighborhood with higher crime rates than where Imani lived. She said the environment was not conducive to a child's growth. Marcus looked at the photographs. They made his home look worse than it was. The lighting was harsh. The angles were unflattering. But he couldn't deny the facts. The apartment was small. The furniture was old. He did sleep on the couch. Imani's lawyer also presented a work schedule report. It showed that Marcus's hours sometimes changed on short notice, that he occasionally had to work late or take emergency calls. She said this lack of consistency made it difficult for him to provide reliable care. She mentioned that Marcus had been late to a parent-teacher conference once, that he had asked a neighbor to watch Amara for a few hours on 2 separate occasions. Marcus felt the room closing in on him. Every detail they presented was true. He couldn't argue with the facts. He could only hope the judge saw beyond them. When Imani's lawyer finished, the judge turned to Marcus. "Mr. Jackson, do you have any witnesses or evidence to present?" Marcus stood. His hands were shaking. He opened his folder and pulled out a small notebook. It was worn at the edges. The cover was faded. He walked to the front of the courtroom and handed it to the judge. "Your Honor, this is my work schedule for the last 3 years." The judge took the notebook and opened it. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, dates, times, shift changes. Every entry was detailed. Every week was accounted for. Marcus stayed standing. "I don't have a lawyer. I don't have expert witnesses, but I have this. For 3 years, I've kept track of every shift I've worked. Every time I asked to change my schedule, every time I took time off, and every single time it was because of my daughter." The judge flipped through the pages slowly. Marcus continued, "I've never missed a school event unless I was working. And when I was working, I always made sure someone I trusted could be there. I've never taken a vacation without her. I've never prioritized anything over her. Not once." The courtroom was silent. Imani's lawyer looked at the notebook from across the room, but said nothing. Imani was staring at the table in front of her. The judge read a few more pages. Then he looked up at Marcus. "You tracked every shift change for 3 years." "Yes, Your Honor." "And these entries, these are all related to your daughter's schedule." "Yes, Your Honor, every one of them." The judge closed the notebook and set it on the bench. He wrote something in his notes. Then he looked at Imani's lawyer. "Counselor, do you have any response to this?" Imani's lawyer stood. She didn't look rattled, but she didn't look as confident as before. "Your Honor, while Mr. Jackson's dedication is commendable, it doesn't address the core issue. A child needs more than just time. She needs resources. She needs educational opportunities. She needs a stable environment that can support her long-term development." The judge nodded slowly. "Noted." He looked at Marcus. "Mr. Jackson, you may sit down." Marcus returned to his seat. He felt lighter than before, not because he thought he had won, but because he had finally said what he needed to say. The hearing continued. Imani's lawyer presented more arguments. She talked about the quality of schools in Imani's neighborhood, the extracurricular programs available, the support network Imani had through her family. She painted a picture of a life that Marcus couldn't provide. A life with more opportunities, more stability, more of everything. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't have a counter-argument. He just sat and listened. When the hearing ended, the judge said he would review all the materials and issue a decision within 10 days. He thanked both parties and dismissed the court. Marcus gathered his folder and walked out. He didn't look at Imani. He didn't look at her lawyer. He just left. Outside, the air was cold. Marcus sat on the same bench he had sat on 2 weeks earlier. He pulled out his phone and stared at the screen. No new messages. He thought about calling Amara, but he didn't know what to say. He thought about calling a friend, but he didn't want to explain what had just happened. He sat there for a long time, then he drove home. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the notebook. He thought about the photographs of his apartment. He thought about everything Imani's lawyer had said, and he wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe Amara did deserve better. Maybe he was holding her back. Maybe he was being selfish by trying to keep her. The next morning, Marcus dropped Amara off at school and went to work. He fixed 3 air conditioning units and replaced a furnace. His coworker Darnell asked him how the hearing went. Marcus told him it was fine. Darnell didn't push. But that night, after Amara went to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and thought about giving up. He thought about calling Imani and telling her she could have full custody, that he wouldn't fight anymore, that he would just take whatever visitation rights they gave him. It would be easier, it would be less painful, and maybe it would be better for Amara. He picked up his phone. He scrolled to Imani's number. His thumb hovered over the call button, but he didn't press it. Instead, he set the phone down and put his head in his hands. He sat there for over an hour. The apartment was quiet. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Marcus thought about the last 3 years. He thought about every morning he had woken up early to make breakfast. Every night he had stayed up late to help with homework. Every weekend they had spent together, every laugh, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. He thought about the way Amara looked at him when he picked her up from school, the way she ran to him, the way she hugged him, the way she said, "Dad, what are we having for dinner?" And then his phone buzzed. It was a text from Amara. She was staying at Imani's house for the night. The message said, "Dad, what are you making tomorrow night? Can we have spaghetti?" Marcus stared at the message. He read it 3 times. Then he typed back, "Of course, sweetheart, whatever you want." He set the phone down. He wiped his eyes and he made a decision. He wasn't going to give up. Not because he thought he could win, but because Amara deserved a father who fought for her, even if he lost. Even if everyone thought he was foolish, he was going to fight. The next week passed in a blur. Marcus went to work, he came home, he cooked dinner, he helped Amara with her homework. They watched TV together, they talked about her day. Everything felt normal, but underneath Marcus was carrying the weight of what was coming. The final hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. The judge would make his decision then. Marcus didn't prepare this time. He didn't write notes. He didn't research laws. He had already said everything he could say. He had already shown everything he had. There was nothing left to do but wait. On Sunday night, Amara asked him if everything was okay. They were sitting on the couch. She was drawing in her sketchbook. Marcus was staring at the TV without really watching it. "Dad, are you okay?" Amara asked. Marcus looked at her. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm fine." "You seem sad?" Marcus smiled. It felt forced, but he tried. "I'm not sad, just tired." Amara set down her pencil. "Did you have a hard day at work?" "Something like that." She leaned against him. "It's okay, Dad. You always feel better after spaghetti." Marcus wrapped his arm around her. "You're right. Spaghetti fixes everything." They sat there for a while. Amara went back to drawing. Marcus watched her. He memorized the way her hand moved across the paper, the way she bit her lip when she concentrated, the way she hummed softly to herself. He wanted to remember this moment just in case. The final hearing was on Monday morning. Marcus wore the same shirt. He carried the same folder, but this time he felt different. Calmer, resigned. He had done everything he could. Now it was out of his hands. The courtroom was the same. The judge was the same. Imani and her lawyer were the same. But something felt heavier, final, that the judge opened the case file. "We're here to conclude the custody modification hearing. I've reviewed all the materials submitted by both parties. I've considered the testimony and evidence presented. Before I issue my decision, I want to give both parties an opportunity to make a final statement. Miss Carter's counsel, would you like to speak?" Imani's lawyer stood. She gave a brief summary of their case. She emphasized Imani's financial stability, her living situation, and her ability to provide for Amara's future. She said this wasn't about taking Amara away from her father. It was about giving her the best possible life. She sat down. The judge turned to Marcus. "Mr. Jackson, do you have anything you'd like to say?" Marcus stood. He didn't have notes this time. He didn't have a plan. He just had the truth. "Your Honor, I know I'm not perfect. I know I don't have money. I know I can't give my daughter everything she deserves. But I've never missed a meal with her. I've never forgotten to help her with a school project. I've never been too tired to read her a bedtime story. And if tomorrow I lose everything, the one thing I don't want to lose is the time I have with her." His voice cracked slightly. He steadied himself and continued. "I'm not asking you to choose me over her mother. I'm just asking you to let me keep being her father every day, not just on weekends, because that's all I have. That's all I am. And I don't know how to be anything else." Marcus sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge was writing something. Imani was looking down at her hands. Her lawyer was flipping through papers, but not really reading them. And then the door at the back of the courtroom opened. Everyone turned. A small figure stood in the doorway, Amara. She was holding the hand of an older woman, Imani's mother. The grandmother looked apologetic but didn't stop the child from moving forward. Amara ran down the aisle. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet courtroom. She didn't look at the judge. She didn't look at anyone except Marcus. She reached him and wrapped her arms around his waist. She was crying. "Dad," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I want to stay with you." Marcus dropped to his knees. He held her tight. He didn't know what to say. He could feel the entire courtroom watching them, but he didn't care. He just held his daughter. The judge looked at Imani's mother, who was still standing near the door. "Ma'am, I assume you're the child's grandmother." The older woman nodded. She walked forward slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry. She's been crying all morning. She said she needed to see her father. I didn't know what else to do." The judge glanced at Imani. She was staring at Amara and Marcus. Her eyes were red. She looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The judge set his pen down. He looked at Amara. "Young lady, do you understand where you are right now?" Amara wiped her eyes and nodded. "Yes, sir. This is a courtroom." "Do you know what that means?" "It's where people decide things," Amara said quietly. "That's right. And do you know what we're deciding today?" Amara looked at Marcus. Then she looked at the judge. "You're deciding if I have to leave my dad." The judge leaned back in his chair. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. "Sweetheart, nobody said you have to leave your dad. We're just trying to figure out what's best for you." "I know what's best for me," Amara said. Her voice was steadier now. "I want to live with my dad." Imani stood up. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but Imani ignored her. She walked over to Amara and Marcus. She knelt down beside them. Amara turned and looked at her mother. Imani's face was wet with tears. "Amara," Imani said softly, "I'm not trying to take you away from your dad." "Then why are we here?" Amara asked. Imani didn't have an answer. She just looked at Marcus. He was still holding their daughter. His eyes were red too. Imani took a breath and stood up. She turned to the judge. "Your Honor," Imani said, "I'd like to withdraw my petition." Her lawyer stood immediately. "Miss Carter, we need to discuss this." Imani shook her head. "No, I'm done." The lawyer tried again. "Imani, please, let's take a moment." Imani looked at her lawyer. "I said, I'm done." The courtroom was silent. The judge watched Imani carefully. "Miss Carter, are you certain about this?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You understand that withdrawing your petition means the current custody arrangement will remain in place?" "I understand." The judge nodded slowly. He wrote something in his notes. Then he looked at Marcus. "Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to add?" Marcus stood up. Amara stayed close to him, holding his hand. He looked at Imani. Then he looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I don't want to take Imani out of Amara's life. I never did. I just want to keep being her father. Every day, the way I have been." The judge closed the case file. "All right, given Miss Carter's withdrawal of the petition, the current custody arrangement will remain in effect. Joint custody. Both parents will continue to share responsibilities for the child's well-being. If there are any issues or conflicts in the future, you're encouraged to resolve them through mediation rather than litigation." He looked at both of them. "I'll be honest with you, this court sees a lot of parents who can't stand to be in the same room. But what I've seen here today tells me that both of you love your daughter. And that's the most important thing. Don't lose sight of that." The gavel came down. The case was over. Marcus stood in the hallway outside the courtroom. Amara was sitting on a bench nearby, swinging her legs. Imani's mother had taken her to get a drink of water. Imani stood a few feet away from Marcus. Her lawyer had already left. It was just the two of them. "I'm sorry," Imani said. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the floor. Marcus didn't respond right away. He just waited. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Imani continued. "Everyone kept telling me that Amara needed more. Better schools, more opportunities. I started believing them. I started thinking you weren't enough." Marcus crossed his arms. "And now?" Imani finally looked at him. "Now I realize I was wrong. Not about wanting more for her, but about thinking you couldn't give it to her." "I can't give her a big house," Marcus said. "I can't give her private school. I can't give her a lot of things." "I know," Imani said, "but you give her something I forgot about. You're there every single day. You don't miss things. You don't make excuses. You just show up. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had spent weeks being angry at Imani, but standing there looking at her, he realized she wasn't the enemy. She was just a mother who wanted the best for her daughter, just like he did. I didn't mean to make this a fight, Imani said. I just thought... She stopped. She wiped her eyes. I don't know what I thought. Marcus took a breath. We should talk, not through lawyers, just us, about schedules, about what works, about what Amara needs. Imani nodded. I'd like that. They stood there for a moment. Then Imani walked over to the bench where Amara was sitting. She knelt down in front of her daughter and brushed a strand of hair out of her face. I love you, sweetheart. You know that, right? Amara nodded. I know, Mom. I'm sorry I scared you. Amara hugged her. Imani held her for a long time. Then she stood up and looked at Marcus. I'll call you this week. We'll figure out a better schedule. Okay, Marcus said. Imani left. Marcus watched her walk down the hallway and disappear around the corner. Then he turned to Amara. You ready to go home? Amara jumped off the bench. Can we get ice cream? Marcus smiled. Yeah, we can get ice cream. They walked out of the courthouse together. The sun was bright. The air was cool. Amara held his hand as they crossed the parking lot. She was talking about her favorite ice cream flavor, mint chocolate chip. She always picked mint chocolate chip. Marcus listened. He wasn't thinking about the hearing anymore. He wasn't thinking about the lawyer or the photographs or the arguments. He was just thinking about the small hand holding his, the voice chattering beside him, the way she looked up at him every few seconds to make sure he was listening. They got in the car. Amara buckled her seatbelt. Marcus started the engine. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Amara asked, Dad, are we still having spaghetti tonight? Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You want spaghetti and ice cream in the same day? Why not? Marcus laughed. Why not? They drove to the ice cream shop near their apartment. It was a small place with a striped awning and a chalkboard menu outside. They ordered 2 cones. Marcus got vanilla. Amara got mint chocolate chip. They sat on a bench outside and ate in silence for a while. Dad, Amara said eventually, are you and Mom going to be okay? Marcus looked at her. Yeah, sweetheart, we're going to be okay. You're not mad at her? Marcus thought about it. No, I'm not mad. Good, Amara said. She took another bite of her ice cream. I don't like it when people are mad. Me neither. They finished their ice cream and drove home. When they got